What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the GridironTalkZone podcast, episode 19 now. I have a new co-host here, John. Um, he's gonna be another co-host on this channel. There's me and then there's Graham, who is currently on, I guess we could say IR with a busy schedule. Um, but I don't know how long he's gonna be out for. But John will be his fill-in, and John will also be peeling probably pretty often too once Graham's back anyway. But yeah, so today we're gonna be talking the free agency moves. Free agency is coming up, and the franchise tag deadline just passed, so there's a lot of news to talk about there. There's been a few surprise releases. Derek Carr signed with the Saints too, so we'll talk about all that. But then the main part of the show will be AFC team needs. We're going to kind of go over every AFC team, look at the cap situation, look at the roster holes, and potential free agents to fill those holes. And we're also going to look at the current free agents who might want to let walk or try to resign. But anyway, I will let John give himself like a quick 30-second introduction, and then we'll start the pod.
All right, I'm John. I was born in Connecticut, and my favorite teams are the Celtics, Patriots, and Yankees.
All right, so yeah, John's gonna be a new co-host too. So, but without further ado, we can get started. So first, we're gonna be talking about just the free agency talk. Since it's been a while since I've done a podcast before the free agency, just want to go over the three notable names that retired. Obviously, you have Tom Brady, J.J. Watt, A.J. Green. A.J. Green was a little surprising. J.J. Watt was a little surprising, but when you factor in his injury situations throughout his career, not too surprising. Tom Brady did retire last year, came back this year. He retired, so looks like he's going to be retired for good now. But yeah, good, more than good career, great career for Tom Brady. So yeah, that was. I mean, it was last year. It was more just shocking whenever he walked away at first. Now it was just like you kind of expect him to be done. They came off a disappointing season. Um, could have seen him doing one last ride in San Francisco or something, but that looks out of the picture now. But I don't know if you saw, but today there's rumors going around that he might go to the Dolphins, but he kind of shut that down, and I don't see that happening at all. So I think that's just stirring up rumors. But yeah, anything you wanted to say about those three players?
I was a little surprised when J.J. Watt announced his retirement because he was still performing well, and even his last game, he had some nice plays.
Yeah, he had his best season in years, and you could just tell. I watched him the Sunday night football game versus the Bucks. I think it was the day before he announced he was retiring. He was just playing like super hard. He had so many impact plays, and I was like, wow, it looks like Pro Bowl J.J. Watt out here.
Yeah, and he was like fired up on the sidelines too.
Yeah, you could just tell he was playing with an extra edge on such a bad team, but I guess it had to do with the fact that he was retiring. So, but yeah, Tom Brady, there's a lot to say about him. We're gonna probably talk about some all-time quarterback stuff this offseason, so he'll get a lot of talk there. But right now, this is mainly about free agency. So we're going to talk about some current free agency stuff going on. First, let's talk about two players who were released. Carson Wentz, quarterback, Commandos, didn't play much last season. Probably played about half the season, was dealing with injury and dealing with keeping his starting job, Taylor Heineke. Marcus Mariota was released. He started the majority of the season, but once the Falcons were kind of out of playoffs contention, they put Desmond Riddle in to get a look on the young rookie. And it seems like Desmond Riddle is going to be the starter going forward unless they have a big offseason quarterback move come in. But yeah, I guess factoring the money situation, I know both teams. I think the Falcons saved about 12 million ish. The Commandos probably saved. I think they actually saved more than that, like 25 million ish. So it makes sense with those cuts. Do you think that Carson Wentz is going to get another starting chance next year? Because personally, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't think he'll get a starting chance unless there's injuries or stuff like that.
And then Mariota, same kind of deal. I think Wentz is more proven than Mariota, so I'd be more willing to take him on as a veteran backup. Marcus Mariota, it's kind of just he'll be a veteran backup too, but I think Wentz is the more high priority backup to go after, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But anyway, now we're talking the big news. You see, I have the Derek Carr jersey back here. Derek Carr goes to the New Orleans Saints. I didn't talk to you about this yet, but I've been talking to some other people about it. Where does Derek Carr rank among NFC quarterbacks? Because looking at it straight up, The only two that I can definitely say are better than Derek Carr, not counting Aaron Rodgers, because I think he's not
Hmm.
going to be a Packer, but he's
Yeah.
kind of up in the air, so we'll just keep him out of this right now. Brady's retired. You're looking at Jalen Hurts and Geno Smith. But I have Kirk Cousins over Carr too. Most people probably do, but I feel like that's one where any given day you could go with either or because Carr has had seasons where he's better than Kirk Cousins. Cousins has had seasons where he's better than Carr. So I think Carr is kind of in that 3 to 4 range. You look at the main two though, Geno Smith and Jalen Hurts. The funny part is, before last year, neither of them were considered better quarterback than Derek Carr. So I
Hmm.
feel like I've seen some people say um, that this move is kind of just a desperation move where the Saints need a quarterback and it's not actually going to be a long term answer. But they did sign him to a 4 year deal, and I don't know. I think he's going to provide some good years. I think they should win the NFC South. Other quarterbacks too are like Matthew Stafford, but he's getting up there in age.
Yeah,
Kyler
and
Murray,
Jared Goff.
yeah, Jared Goff. He had a really good season last year, but overall, I don't think he's comparable to Carr with his
Yeah.
Carr does the deep ball much better, and Goff had a lot of offensive talent and pretty good offensive coach in Ben Johnson. But um, what was I going to say? Kyler Murray can also be in that conversation for being better than Carr, but Murray is very consistent and he's been struggling with injuries recently, and he's
Hmm.
out with an ACL tear. I just prefer Carr over Murray, but yeah. So, what do you think of this move?
I think this is a great move for the Saints. Um, their big issue last year was quarterback, and they addressed it early. So maybe that leaves like Michael Thomas to re-sign or their other key free agents to re-sign. So I like the move.
Yeah, and he has Chris Olave now as his probably go-to guy after the stellar rookie season.
Hmm.
So hopefully they can get a very good connection and have a good connection for years to come. The defense is getting up there in age, but you do have some young guys like Lattimore's not too old. They've been drafting guys, drafted that Cornel Paulson and Debo a couple of years back, who's been developing pretty solid. Demario Davis, he's a veteran, but he's still a good player. Same
Yeah.
with Cam Jordan. Marcus Davenport starting to come along in his career, and you still have talent, Tyrann Mathieu. So you still have a lot of talent on this roster. The O line has Ryan Ramczyk still, who's still only like in his 6th year of his career or something like that. So I think that this team still can be pretty good moving forward. The question is how good can they be, but that's for a later date. But
Hmm.
yeah, Carr, I like the move, and I'm a big Derek Carr fan. Carr will now be part of the Saints fan club along with Graham. Obviously,
Yeah.
he's a loyal Saints fan. I'm just a Derek Carr fan who wants to see the Saints do good. But yeah, it should be interesting. So I'm excited to watch him play in New Orleans next year. The funny part is, I was always saying when Sean Payton was there, the Saints need to get Derek Carr to be the next quarterback because he not that he's Drew Brees, but he has a lot of what Drew Brees has
Yeah, that's a good
with
point.
with a very good deep ball too. He obviously doesn't have the quite like pocket awareness and the quick read ability to just read the defense easily over the middle like a Drew Brees was in his prime in that 2017 to 19 range too, even the last part of his career. But he has the similar traits as far as the accuracy standpoint and not being like a crazy mobile quarterback, but he can throw the ball accurately and not turn it over too much. Although this year he did kind of struggle with turnovers, but that was kind of an outlier throughout his career. But anyway, we
Hmm.
can move on to the next moves. A few more quarterback moves. Geno Smith contract extension. I'm actually going to pull up those details, but it was a well-deserved contract because he did play good. He made a 3 year, 105 million deal, so over 30 million a year there for him. Well deserved. He had a good deal. Do you think the Seahawks still going to draft a quarterback, or do you think they should just focus on keeping Geno Smith for this next 3 years? Obviously, because I think the 3 year contract kind of they didn't franchise him, so that kind of tells you with the 3 year deal that they're going to keep him long term. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think they should keep Gino. He had a very good season last year and proved the haters wrong. So I'd just like giving him another chance.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is this contract. I'm not sure if it has any opt out abilities, but because obviously 1 year isn't the best sample size, but he took them to the playoffs. Never, me and many others thought they would be the worst, one of the worst teams in football.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that move for the Seahawks. A couple more signing, more than a couple to look at, but Daniel Jones, He was paid a lot. Let me see. I believe it came out to $40 million a year, but I'm gonna double check that. Yep, 4 years, $160 million deal. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
As much as I like Daniel Jones, he did play really well in that first playoff game versus the Vikings. He had a good season. He can still keep developing under Brian Dable, but I don't know. 40 million yield just seems like a lot. Before the
Yeah.
yield, whenever me and Graham were on here, I said that kind of the opposite of what happened. I said Daniel Jones was going to have his best year of his career, which he probably did, but I said the Giants weren't going to win enough games to completely be sold on Daniel Jones. So then they're going to, since he had good stats and they didn't win enough games, which didn't happen, but what I thought was going to happen, I thought maybe then they would franchise him and then he would prove people wrong this year. But it all kind of happened a year early. He did have his best season, like I thought, but they won a lot of games, made the playoffs, so they didn't franchise him. They gave him the extension and instead franchised Saquon Barkley. But I don't know. I guess since you have Saquon, you kind of can't franchise Daniel Jones, and of course, him wanting a deal, he's not going to want to settle for like a 1 or 2 year deal. So it was kind of a tough situation. Do you think it was an overpay? But what are your thoughts on this move?
I definitely think it was an overpay. I think that Brian Dable is just such a good head coach, and they have many more things to develop. And I don't think that paying Daniel Jones this much was a good move.
Yeah, I see that same standpoint too. Lamar Jackson. Now this is the interesting one. He was franchise tagged. So that means don't know how much he's going to make, but it's the average of the top 5 highest paid contracts. So probably still way less than he wants. I don't know if he said anything on social media or something yet, but he's probably not very happy with this move. And this means he can still negotiate with other teams, but the Ravens would have a chance to match whatever offer other teams offer him. And then I think the power goes to the Ravens to keep him or sign and trade him. So the Ravens still kind of have everything in control. It's just will Lamar Jackson be happy with the franchise tag? I don't really have a whole lot to say on this, though, since I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to this type of stuff. But what do you have to say on this?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about the franchise tag because I don't think he likes the deal. And they obviously, it'd be a good move to keep him, but I don't think, I don't know. I think he's someone that deserved to be paid, and I just don't like it.
Yeah, I don't really see a way he's not going to play for the Ravens next year. Another interesting point to add is not that I think he's the future like some people have thought, but Tyler Huntley is also a free agent this year, so that's interesting. But anyway, we can move on to some quick running back things. Josh Jacobs franchise, Saquon Barkley franchise, Tony Pollard franchise. Don't really have much to say about those. Saquon Barkley, I think it's a smart move. He is a very good player, but I just don't really like giving running backs long-term deals. Josh Jacobs, you think about him being a guy that had his 5th-year option decline last offseason. Then he goes and becomes probably the best running back just based off this past season.
Hmm.
Not in general, but just based off the past season. So they kind of had to make a move with him, and franchising him is the smart move because, again, you want to see him, even if he does put some good years together after this, he's still kind of going to get old in age, and you don't want to overpay running back. So it's kind of a smart business move to franchise all these guys. The Cowboys kind of made a mistake overpaying Zeke years ago.
Yeah.
Now I think they made up for it franchising Tony Pollard instead of giving him a long-term deal. Another running back move, this isn't official yet, but when March 15th comes, it sounds like Leonard Fournette is going to be released by the Bucks. I mean, the Bucks are kind of not as relevant as they were in past years, and Leonard Fournette is getting up there in age, so kind of makes sense. Calvin Ridley's reinstated. We'll cover 2 quick Jaguars things here. Calvin Ridley is being reinstated to the Falcons, kind of expected at this point, but that only adds to the receiving core led by Christian Kirk. Evan Ingram, who actually was one of the better tight ends in football this year, he gets franchise tagged, so that means he's going to play there another year. I don't know if I like him getting that average of the top 5 tight end pay type of money, but then again, he was probably a top 10 tight end this year, and you kind of don't want to give him a long-term deal just yet, so I can understand them franchising him, and maybe they didn't have quite other players that they wanted to really franchise, so it makes sense. Now we can quickly talk about the Titans, seeming like they're gonna blow it up. I don't know if you saw, but did you hear they released Robert Woods, Bud Dupree, Taylor Lewan, Zach
Oh
Cunningham,
my.
and they released the kicker Randy Bullock. Not that like adds much detail to what I'm saying, but anyway, you've heard the Derrick Henry trade talks, right?
No, actually.
Those trade talks that Derrick Henry could be traded, I don't think it's gonna happen, but it'd be kind of weird if that happens.
Did they use their tag?
No, I don't think they use their tag on
Oh,
anyone.
hmm.
But anyway, yeah. So the tie-ins team, we'll talk about more of them whenever we get to the team stuff. But yeah, we can move on to the next one. Frank Clark is released by the Chiefs. Bit of a surprise, but I guess they saved some money releasing him. He's a very good playoff player, not the most consistent player year in and year out throughout the regular season, but he shows up in big moments and has been crucial. The weirdest stat that I learned during the Super Bowl was that Frank Clark is third all time in playoff career sacks. Did you know
Yeah, I
that?
saw that graphic. What the? I didn't
I was
even.
I was like, what? But I looked at his career. I think he's only missed the playoffs once on like that 2017 or 18 Seahawks team that just missed or something like that. But 2017 Seahawks just missed the playoffs. But yeah, he could also sign back with the Chiefs on a cheaper deal, but we'll see what happens there. Um, Then a few other moves. Bobby Wagner is going to be released come March 15th. This one made no sense. So last offseason, I thought they kind of people were overhyping that move because
Mhm.
he's been kind of declining throughout his career the last few years as far as like his speed goes throughout his game, and just he isn't the best coverage linebacker anymore. But then he goes out and has a monster year this year and is one of the best linebackers in football. So then they cut him. Sounds like they might be thinking about just blowing it up, but what are they going to do? Stafford? We'll see what's going on there. But the one that was most surprising to me out of all these moves yesterday, Alec Kendricks, the Vikings linebacker, was released.
Really?
Yeah, he was released. So basically, what it came down to, what I heard is he didn't fit the best in the scheme. That's why he didn't have his best year last year. But before that, before the new coaching staff came in with Mike Zimmer, he was a top 5 linebacker in football for like a 3 to 4 year span. But yes, that was an interesting move.
Yeah, I
But
thought he was one of their better defensive players.
yeah, he really is one of the best defensive players, and I don't know how much money they saved cutting him, but it was an interesting move. They're bringing Brian Flores as DC, so we'll see what they do. One more move. Commander's safety, Bobby McCain was released. They have some other guys back there, so they'll be fine. But we can move on to the main part of the show, the team needs.
Yes.
So I made these graphics today, like rushed through them in like 2 hours, but I have them done for the pod. So we're just going over AFC today. I'll probably do NFC on my own time because John's going to be on a vacation coming up here soon. But yeah, so AFC team needs. Starting with the Bengals. Safety is my first team need. Like it's only because Jesse Bates and Von Bell are free agents, so I'm basically just putting
Mhm.
safety as a team need
Yeah.
because they need to re-sign those guys. Jesse Bates was franchised last offseason. I remember he was unhappy with it, and it sounded like he might not even play this year, but he ended up playing, having a pretty solid season. So they're definitely going to want to bring him and Von Bell back because just watching them throughout the playoffs the last few years, Von Bell has been a very nice player
Mhm.
too, and the combination has been good. So that'll be interesting to see what they do there. Cornerback 2, this is basically has to do with two things. One, they need to replace Eli Apple. Two, Eli Apple's a free agent anyway, so he probably will be replaced.
Yeah.
Quarterback 1 is going to be Chidobe Awuzie. He was injured part of last year. I think he tore his ACL actually. So
Yeah.
they have Mike Hilton at slot, one of the best slot corners in football. So they're going to need another outside corner. They drafted Cam Taylor-Britt out of Nebraska last year. He was solid when he played, but you're going to want to get another guy to come compete with him for that second cornerback spot, and then the other guy can be a depth piece. So let's look at some cornerback options real quick. Do you have the free agents pulled up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually like Patrick Peterson. Getting
Patrick.
some.
That does make a lot of sense. Now that I think about it, because yeah, trying to win a ring late in his career. Probably not the best number 1 anymore because he isn't the fastest guy anymore, so you don't want him lining up against the top receivers. Yeah, I like that. Number 2, that would make a lot of sense. Okay, number 3 is offensive tackle. Basically, what I'm saying here is Jonah Williams hasn't grown into the player that he was drafted to be at left tackle. Lael Collins was signed to a big contract last offseason. Didn't have the best deal, but kind of due to contract, you have to keep him. I actually was looking at something. They can't cut Jonah Williams because they lose like 12, 13 mil or something like that in dead cap. So basically, I think they're going to decline his fifth year option this year, and I think they should bring in another tackle to compete with him, and just whoever wins gets the job, and then Jonah Williams will walk next year. Or you let Jonah Williams, maybe that motivates him. He goes and improves himself and becomes your franchise left tackle this year. But basically, I think they need to have a guy come compete with Jonah Williams. That's kind of what that other team needed was for. Because looking at the rest of the roster, it's very complete. For the Super Bowl caliber team, having this much cap space, it's pretty nice to see. Obviously, a good chunk of that can be spent on Jesse Bates and Von Bell. Hayden Hurst is also a free agent. I feel like in this offense, you can kind of plug and play tight end, but he did have a pretty nice season, and you'd like to not have a new tight end 3 years in a row. You'd like to bring back Hayden Hurst. So anyway, anything else you want to add to the Bengals? Did we pretty much cover it?
I think we covered it.
On to the Ravens. Wide receiver 1. What do you think? Because I don't think Rashad Bateman is a wide receiver 1. I think he should move down to wide receiver 2. And then they should go try to draft a stud wide receiver 1 because they don't have the free agency money to go out and pay one unless they clear up a lot of cap. So do you think that they should also go draft a wide receiver 1?
Yeah, I definitely think they should go draft because especially this year, the free agent wide receivers aren't too great.
Who is the top free agent wide receivers?
It's Jacoby Myers, Juju, and Odell.
Wow. Last year it was like Adams, a bunch of other guys too. So that's a drop off. But yeah, wide receiver 1, I think they should go get a cornerback too because Marcus Peters is a free agent and he's getting up there in age. Corner has been a strength for years, so they need to have another guy with Marlon Humphrey. Then wide receiver depth. I say this because DeMarcus Robinson and Sammy Watkins are both free agents. So I think I honestly wouldn't be against bringing DeMarcus Robinson back because he had a pretty good year with the Ravens as a wide receiver 3. But he would probably be the wide receiver 4 because if they follow my plan, they go draft a wide receiver 1. They move Rashad Bateman to wide receiver 2. They have kind of a do-it-all wide receiver in Devin Duvernay as far as, I mean, he's flexible, can play in many different spots. He was pretty good this year. So yeah, I would like the Ravens moving forward if they could go make some moves that I have them needing to make. But they don't have much cap, so it's gonna be tough. And they have to worry about paying Lamar Jackson now that they just franchised him. But yeah, they also have Ben Powers as a free agent, offensive guard. Justin Houston, free agent. He's old. The dude is super old, but he had a 12
He had
sacks.
like a career year this year.
He had like a 12 sack season. He just went off, so maybe you want to bring him back. But they have a lot of pass rushers, so they'll be fine either way. But yeah, so the Ravens team that I could see as long as they get the Lamar situation settled, get him some help offensively, and make sure they can bring back Peters or go get another cornerback, they can be right in contention for the division with the Bengals next year. Moving on to a team that I kind of like a lot going forward, the Steelers. I'm really a big Kenny Pickett fan, but as far as looking at the team needs right now, offensive tackle is still a need. The offensive line play was a little surprising last year compared to what the roster you would expect out of it. It was a little bit better than you would think. But they're still going to need to make some moves because Dan Moore Jr. And Okafor are not the best starting tacklers. And I think they might be free agents, so one of them might be a free agent. But anyway, they need to help Kenny Pickett, help the young quarterback, put some O-line up there,
and help that running game too.
Yeah, because Najee Harris, he's more talented than his stats show.
Yeah,
he shouldn't be running for less than 4 yards a carry, but I think he's ran for less than 4 yards a carry both his first 2 years. So I would like to see them get Najee Harris some help. But anyway, going on to the next need, cornerback. So they did trade for William Jackson in November, but I don't know if he ever played for them, and it sounds like they might cut him now. So Cameron Sutton, been a pretty good player throughout his career. He's a free agent, so you're going to want to bring him back. But outside of that, the cornerback room is not the best. So you still expect the Steelers to get it situated no matter who's playing there, but yeah, they need to go get some cornerback help. Linebacker Devin Bush kind of hasn't panned out, but um, he's a free agent anyway, and then Robert Spillane's a free agent. You still have Miles Jack, so you could always use some help there. But outside of that, this roster isn't too far off from being pretty complete. They just need to help Kenny Pickett out on the O line, make sure that they can have enough cornerback depth and good play there to defend the pass. And Kenny Pickett needs to develop, and this team should still be in playoff contention every year like they seem to be. But you can look at some of the other free agents if you missed them, and we can move on to the Cleveland Browns. The Browns, they're not in a great cap situation. But looking at their needs, it's basically like they're a pretty complete roster just looking at it. Jadeveon Clowney sounds like he isn't playing there anymore, and he's a free agent anyway. They're going to need an edge too, the other side of Myles Garrett. The interior defensive line is bad in the first place, and it has some free agents now. So they're going to need to fill that hole. And then linebacker, Taki's a free agent. Still have JOK, who's pretty good. So that's just they could add a linebacker, but outside of that, they have pretty complete roster. I don't know about you, but I would say the wide receiver core is better than I thought it would be this year.
Yeah.
Amari Cooper had one of the best years recently for him. Maybe it's just because he was a wide receiver too, but Donovan Peoples-Jones did put up pretty good numbers. David Bell's had a solid rookie campaign, although he can still improve a lot. And David Njoku had one of his best seasons of his career as a tight end. So I feel like the weapons kind of maybe yeah, they could still add another receiver, but I don't know if it's in the top 3 needs. But yeah, anything you want to say about this team?
Definitely they need to address that front seven because their corners and safeties are pretty good actually.
Yeah, I really do like the Browns secondary. But free agents, Kareem Hunt, Taven Bryant, Ethan Pokic, who actually had a pretty good year at center after replacing J.C. Treadle, who retired last offseason. And then they have Taki linebacker, the free agent. So we can move on to the Jaguars. The Jaguars, they went from having a ton of cap last year to like no cap this year because they spent so much of it last year. But hey, they did make the playoffs. They have young players growing. They have Calvin Ridley coming back. But with that being said, I feel like they still need to address the offensive line. Cam Robinson and Jawan Taylor, both are kind of not the best. Neither of them are like awful. They're both like starting caliber, but they're not going to give you very good play. But they're usually healthy and the starting caliber, so I guess that's a plus. But you would like to upgrade there and get Trevor Lawrence's franchise tackle, whether that be draft, free agency. Going to be hard with the cap space, but interior O-line has some young guys, but Brandon Scherf is good. But outside of him, you need to kind of address that because you have 2 very talented players in the backfield: Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, both of the future stars at those positions. So you'd like to see them have some protection. So I think that has to be number 1 for the Jags. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, like their offensive weapons are very good. The only issue is their O-line right now.
Yeah, then looking at the secondary, I just put secondary because I like a lot of the guys in the secondary, but to be honest, the front 7, fairly complete. You have some good linebackers in Aluakon, the guy who was on the Falcons, now on the Jags. Devin Lloyd had a pretty good rookie season. I like Chad Muma a lot, who was a rookie. And then looking at the defensive line, you're into some guys like Roy Robertson Harris had a pretty good deal, and then you factor in Josh Allen and Trevon Walker. They just have to keep growing. Josh Allen's a very good player. Trevon Walker had a solid rookie season. He just has to keep growing, and this team has a pretty good front 7. That being said, the secondary is also pretty good. Tyson Campbell, young corner, had a good year. Darius Williams is a pretty good number 2 corner. Andre Cisco kind of took over that role as a ball hawk free safety, as you expect. Then Rashawn Jenkins is a pretty good strong safety. So they just need to add some depth probably back there, and they have Trey Herndon, one of their corners, as a free agent. So maybe just add some depth on defense. But outside of that, this roster is looking very complete, and it's only improving with the youth growing as players. Free agents, though, Marvin Jones Jr., you have Cook, Ridley, Zay Jones. So if you don't bring him back, it's not the biggest deal, but you'd always like to have that veteran, big body receiver there for Trevor Lawrence. Arden Key had a pretty good geo rush in the past, so he seems like he's played on a lot of teams, but not a must bring back guy either. Jawan Taylor, if you don't bring him back, you're going to need to go find a new starting right tackle probably.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of probably the biggest piece to bring back here. But as I said, that's a need too. So like you can always upgrade in the draft. So definitely like the direction of the Jaguars roster. Kind of going over it, does that make you think like they're kind of a complete roster too?
Yeah, like you talking about it, I was like, Jags have a lot of good players. And if they continue to develop, like they will be set.
Yeah, and they already won a playoff game this year when I didn't see
Yeah.
many people or anyone really having them in the playoffs. So like the future for the Jags. Don't like the future for the Tennessee Titans. They do have cap space, but that's because they cut like 4 or 5 of those starters that we went over earlier. It seems like the last few off seasons, the Titans have done similar stuff. I remember a few off seasons ago, they cut like a bunch of starters or something, or a few of them at least, and they brought in pretty good replacements. So we'll see if they can do that. But first off, going over the needs, wide receiver. Basically, I'm still a believer in Treylon Burks. I think he has a lot of potential. Didn't have the best rookie season, though. You're always going to want to bring in a guy to compete with him. Now that you have Robert Woods out of there, you want to bring in a guy who can be a veteran sidekick to Treylon Burks, which it felt like Robert Woods was going to be, but it didn't work out the best, so they're moving on from him. Or you can bring in a guy who can just be the wide receiver 1 and make Treylon Burks your wide receiver 2. But anyway, they're going to need to improve this wide receiver room because they're at the point where the offensive line is getting worse and old, but they're trying to get it young, so that's there, but they need to hit on some of the draft picks. Derrick Henry's in trade talk, so this offense needs to find an identity, and whether it be through the pass game, whether it still be through Derrick Henry, I don't know, but they need to have that identity, and they definitely need the talent to have that identity, and they don't quite have the talent right now. But as I said, they cut Taylor Lewan, although he didn't play much last year because he tore his ACL or something like that. But anyway, they need some offensive line talent, especially at the tackle spot. Really on both sides too. Cornerback, they have some young players. Christian Fulton, more of a slot guy though. They have Roger McQuilly, who they drafted last year, but they still need to add some talent to that room. But yeah, do you want to say anything about the Titans?
I just think they're kind of in a similar to how I thought of them last year, but what's his name? The coach.
Vrabel.
He's a really good coach, and I just think they'll be mediocre.
Yeah, this team that won like 8 games or so last year, 7 or 8 games, they do need to just either retool or rebuild, one or the other. I really don't think retooling with Tannehill and an aging roster is going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of the rebuild time, but I have the gut feeling that they're going to stick it out with Tannehill one more year because they don't quite believe in Malik Willis yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll kind of know more next year, but we'll see. See some free agency. But yeah, we can move on to the next team. My formerly beloved Indianapolis Colts. I don't love this team that much anymore.
Look at that cap space.
They have a ton of cap space. Them and the Bears have the most cap space. I used to love the Colts. If you didn't watch this channel last year, I predicted them to go to the Super Bowl. Didn't work out the best for me. I just convinced myself that the Colts were going to be good last year and really good, and they weren't at all. But anyway, team needs. Obviously, they need a quarterback since Matt Ryan didn't work out. He's getting old. You have Nick Foles, Sam Ellinger, not much answers there. You need a quarterback. So that's going to be in the draft. Whether you take someone at 4 or you trade up for your guy at 1 with the Bears. They're going to be taking a quarterback in the top 5. No way they don't take a quarterback.
Yeah, no way.
So who's going to be the quarterback? I don't know. Is it Young, Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis? We'll see. I'm going to still need to go over draft stuff, which me and John kind of haven't talked about what we're going to do yet, but we're definitely going to get draft player rankings out. Whether that's just me or both of us, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, probably mock draft too. But expect a lot of draft content after the first week or 2 of free agency, so in a few weeks from now. But yeah, I haven't even watched any tape on any prospects. So
yeah, I didn't even pay attention to the combine this year.
Same. Past years I paid attention to the combine. I had the combine on for about 10 minutes this year, but yeah, so I didn't pay attention to anything this year combine wise. So I need to kind of get into draft mode after free agency. But yeah, so Moving on to number 2 need, wide receiver depth. This is mainly because Paris Campbell's a free agent after finally having a healthy season. He had a pretty good deal, honestly. But I still believe in Alec Pierce as a number 2 receiver, Michael Pittman as a number 1, but I don't think he's like a 1A. He's more of a 1B guy. But bring in some wide receiver depth and you'll be fine. I don't think you need to go spend money on a big time wide receiver right now. And this team has other holes to where you can't draft a superstar early. Maybe draft another second round guy. You drafted Pierce second round last year. He was pretty good, but maybe you can really hit on a second round guy and get a wide receiver 1 superstar. So who knows? But number 3, I put O-line competition. So they have good players O-line wise. Here's my theory on the Colts O-line. When Jeff Saturday came, they improved. Still, overall as a season, this O-line on paper is top 10 caliber, and they perform bottom 10 caliber. Could that have stuff to do with the immobile quarterback and Matt Ryan and Nick Foles? I feel like it could have something to do with the quarterback play. Matt Ryan maybe held onto the ball too long, and that hurt him. Or was it the other way around? The O-line was bad. I don't know, because the O-line's been good for years, top notch, and then Matt Ryan comes around and it falls off. And when Jeff Saturday came, it was a little bit better than early in the year, but it still wasn't good. You still have Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly. Your tackles actually are solid in Braden Smith, and Bernard Raymond had a good rookie season. Maybe you just need to bring in some competition for the other guard spot or for tackle since Raymond's still young. But you have 3 pretty proven veterans in Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith. So I think you just need to bring in some competition for the other spots. And I also think getting a young mobile quarterback will help this O-line out. So do you kind of agree on that theory?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like looking at their O-line on paper, it's really good, but everything about the Colts just imploded last year. So,
and even those guys individually PFF grade, they were pretty good. Quentin Nelson wasn't his superstar 90 plus grade. He was like in the 70s, but overall they had a lot of solid graded O linemen. So maybe it did have to do with the quarterback and just the switching coaching and everything, and it was just a mess in Indy last year. But anyway, key free agents, Unique Ngwake, they could bring back. They need to bring back Bobby Okereke to keep him paired with Leonard. He's a pretty good young linebacker. They could let Paris Campbell walk and draft another wide receiver, or you could pay him cheap, like less than 10 mil to be a wide receiver 2 or 3. Then Rodney McLaury, solid safety, but you have Nick Cross drafted last year from Maryland who could take a spot. Then you still have the young Julian Blackman at free safety. So not the biggest must bring back. But anyway, on to the Houston Texans. Feels like this rebuild has been going on for 3 years and made no progress.
yeah.
That's the scary part. Like, going into last year, I thought, hey, the Texans won 4 games. Their rosters improved significantly. They should win more than 4 games. And what did the Texans win last year? The Texans won.
I think they won 4 games. Oh my.
They went 3-13-1 because they tied the Colts week 1. So the Texans, I don't understand. They improved on paper, but they won less games, and I think the schedule was easier than it was the year before too. They went 4-12 with Deshaun Watson. They went 4-12 after Deshaun Watson. They improved the roster and went 3-13-1. They're on their 3rd coach in like 3 years. I think they hit the coach now, though, D'Amico Ryans. We'll see, but I think they may have hit the coach, which is always a big part to team success. They need to hit the quarterback, though. Davis Mills, what do you think on Davis Mills? Do you think that they need to build more talent around him and wait on a future quarterback? Or do you think that since they have the number 2 pick, they should go get the guy now? Or do you have to say that it depends on how you feel about the draft prospects because you probably don't have a great opinion on them yet, as I don't?
I think they should maybe trade back and still go quarterback. Because I'm not a big Davis Mills fan.
Why trade back?
Because I feel like Anthony Richardson could be their guy, going for like the opposite of Davis Mills.
I could see that fit. Or you could see maybe they really like Young and Stroud. Yeah. And the Colts trade up to 1 or something and take the guy. If they have the guy there at 2, they'll probably take him. If not, they could do a trade back scenario. So we could see what happens. I do think they keep that pick, though, and draft a quarterback, but we'll see what happens. They need some interior O-line because Laramie Tunsil is a pretty good tackle. Titus Howard can have his moments at the other tackle spot. But as far as year one goes, it looks like they may have missed on Kenyon Green at guard, and Luceno and the other guard spot is a mess. But yeah, so they need to add to the interior line to protect the future franchise quarterback, whoever that may be. Interior D line needs help too because that's a weakness. Everywhere kind of needs help, but corner should be good with Stingley, a veteran, Steven Nelson. Safety, Jalen Petrie had a good rookie year. You do have your other safety, as you see over here, Jonathan Owens as a free agent. But yeah, I feel like the Texans' main needs quarterback, interior O line, interior D line. How do you feel about the receiver core? Do you think it's good with Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, and now John Mechie, who I was pretty high on as being a pretty good slot player, coming back from cancer, being the number 3 wide receiver? I think it's sneaky good, but it also
Yeah, it doesn't have that one guy.
Brandon Cooks is, I think, going back to Michael Pittman, I don't think he's quite the 1B of Michael Pittman. I think he's more of a 2A.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they could get that stud wide receiver 1, but I think they have too many holes right now to where just get your quarterback and get some help on up front on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you can draft a receiver mid-round, or you can go get that number 1 guy in free agency because you have a ton of cap space. But then again, there's not that stud number 1 guy in free agency, so maybe it could be a thing you adjust next offseason. But yeah, let's move on to the AFC East teams. Looking at the Bills, the cap situation isn't great. Jordan Poirier is a free agent. Priority 1, need 1, bring back strong safety Jordan Poirier, one of the best safeties in the NFL for the last few years now. Definitely need to bring him back. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Him and Mike Hyde have been so good the last few years, so you want to keep that duo together. Linebacker Tremaine Edmonds had probably the best season of his career this past year. He's always been a freakish athletic player who just kind of needs to put it together, and it seems like he's starting to put it together, and he has Matt Milano too. So
yeah,
you want to keep those safety and linebacker cores together. Outside of that, though, the offensive guard spot isn't the best. I believe you have 2 free agents there at guard. And let me check. Roger Saffold, I know, is a free agent, and then the other guard, Greg Van Roten, is a free agent too. Then you have Ryan Bates, who's a quality starter, but nothing special. So you could always get improvement there, and you have 2 free agents at guard. So you wanna get help there, or get one of them back. Other free agents, you have Devin Singletary, Dane Jackson. Neither is a must bring back, although Singletary has kind of been a solid player the last few years. But you do have James Cook. But what are kind of your overall thoughts on the Bills going forward? Do you kind of think that this team just kind of has to – do you think they – wait, one thing to mention is Leslie Frazier, the defense coordinator, is taking a year off. They lost Dable last year. Do you think that this team can still be a Super Bowl contender? Do you think they need to go make another superstar, Stephon Diggs type move? Not a receiver, but like a big name guy like that to make this team a contender?
I feel like they've been in the same spot for the past like 3 or 4 years that they're good. I just don't know. There's something about them that just they're not going to the next level and as being Super Bowl, like being in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it feels like it's something different every year that kind of keeps them out of it.
Yeah.
Like they needed a guy in Diggs, so they went and brought in Diggs. Then they lost to the Chiefs in the AFC title game. It was like, okay, they need to just keep developing, stay together. They had another good year, and then they lost to the Chiefs in that unlucky, I guess you could say, coin flip in the divisional round.
Yeah.
Then they need the rules changed for them. Then they need help on defense to stop Mahomes. They went and brought in Von Miller. And now this year, they just had I don't know what you call it, a really bad game in the divisional round versus the Bengals. So I don't know where this team is headed. I still feel like they can be contenders, and they will be contenders because they have Josh Allen and they have plenty of talent on that offense. But I don't know. Losing some of the coaching staff is concerning. And just overall, the lack of getting over that next step is concerning.
Yeah.
But I still think that they can easily go not only make but win the Super Bowl next year. But anyway, moving on to the next team, the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins, I think the number 1 need is cornerback help outside of Xavier Howard. Byron Jones was released today, but he didn't play much last year due to injury. They had solid play out of a rookie corner, but they just still need to get help there. And the main reason why I say that they need that help is because like looking at the PFF coverage grade, it was 31st out of obviously
Yeah.
32 teams last year, and Xavier Howard, as good of a player as he is, if he's not getting a ton of picks, your cornerback room is very iffy. So I think you need to add depth there. Mike Gesicki's a free agent. Doesn't sound like he's going to be there anymore, so they're going to need to go get a new tight end. They also need O-line depth. They added some big pieces to O-line last year, and those pieces, most of them hit for the most part, but they still can do good work there, fixing up and making a complete O-line, not just an O-line with bottom line starters and a couple of really good players. They need to get a complete O-line. So key free agents, you have Mike Gesicki, who I think is going to walk. You have Alec Rowe, who they could always replace at safety because you still have Trevon Holland, who's not a superstar, but a pretty good young player. Melvin Ingram, they have plenty of pass rushers. They traded for Bradley Chubb last year. You have Manuel Ogba, Jalen Phillips. So it's not the biggest deal if you let Melvin Ingram walk if he wants too much money. Landon Roberts, solid linebacker. Not the biggest deal if you let him walk either. Raheem Mostert, I like the scheme fit. He stayed healthy last year and had a pretty good year, so I want them to bring him back. But again, not the end of the world if he leaves. So this team, I feel like they kind of have the foundation set with the receivers. The question is Tua. Is he healthy? Is he a long-term answer quarterback? And they have a really good pass rush defensively and a good corner in Xavier Howard and another young good player in Javon Holland. So they have the key pieces. They need to just kind of keep fitting in veterans around that, adding depth to certain positions. Hope Tua is the guy, and this team is built to win. But Tua is not the guy, then you need to figure out your quarterback. But I think Tua had a good year. I think we'll kind of have to. This is the make or break year, in my opinion. You have anything else to add?
Yeah, just the big issue for them is depth, and one of the reasons why they didn't even make the playoffs this year was quarterback. So I feel like if Tua can stay healthy this year, they have a good chance to make the playoffs.
It was weird. Skylar Thompson started the playoff game, and they still scored over 30 points. But then, like, during the regular season, every game Tua was out pretty much, they lost. And then the playoffs, they almost beat the Bills with no Tua. Interesting turn of events with the Dolphins. But anyway, on to the New England Patriots. You New England Patriots.
Yeah.
Do you want to read this one, honestly, and give me your thoughts?
Okay. Patriots.
I made the slide, so you can tell me if you disagree with any of these. But yeah, you read the Patriots.
I definitely agree that wide receiver 1 is a big need, and re-signing Jacoby Myers will be good. But we've never had that big number 1 receiver, and it's not on the table this year. So I don't know what we're gonna do about receiver, but re-signing Jacoby Myers would be huge.
We're gonna have to scout the draft prospects and see if there's any draft.
Oh yeah,
because if they can bring in one from the draft, which I just don't see him drafting a receiver in the first round. But if there's any year to do it, it's now because you need to know if Mac Jones is the guy or not after this year to be a franchise quarterback. And did they hire an OC? Yeah, they hired Bill O'Brien to be the OC.
Yeah, Bill O'Brien.
But anyway, we can move on to what else you have to say with the
Patriots. Oh yeah, Bill O'Brien. I was kind of hopeful that we were going to get DeAndre Hopkins, but Bill O'Brien.
Oh yeah, now you might not get Hopkins, but we'll see. Cornerback. This is mainly because you guys don't have a lot of like star cornerbacks since J.C. Jackson, Stephon Gilmore are gone the last few years. Jonathan Jones is actually a free agent. He was a guy that they didn't franchise tag. He's one of the best slot corners in football. So you guys are very good at hitting on corners and developing them. But yeah, you guys could still add that star corner. But the Patriots never seem like they're the team to go sign a big time corner. It seems like they're kind of they take just like a mid-tier corner. They take a mid-tier corner, like how Gilmore was a mid-tier, but he was pretty good in Buffalo. But they developed him into a superstar defensive player of the year type player. Or maybe he just meshed in good and it worked good for both. Or they draft, actually, J.C. Jackson might have been undrafted, a 7th round pick, something like that. And they develop him. So they can develop guys too. So, and they have, speaking of young corners, it looks like Jack Jones had a pretty good year too. So
when he was healthy, he was really good for the few games.
Making this, I forgot about Jack Jones. So I guess you could kind of flip 2 and 3 needs because offensive tackle is a need because Isaiah Wynn is a free agent. And you need to bring him back. Trent Bound is still the other tackle, right?
Yeah, but he was He was not good this year. He was always getting holding penalties and false starts. Yeah,
I'm just curious. I want to go look up some. I want to go look up some Brown stuff. But you can
Trent Brown.
finish talking about the free agents and
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah, big thing for Patriots is offensive line because last year they struggled. But I did like David Andrews and Cole Strange. But apart from that, um, we kind of struggled with offensive line.
Wow. So Trent Brown gave up 8 sacks last year, which was tied for the 5th most of tackles. And penalty wise, he had 13 penalties called on him, which was the second most. And 4 of those were accepted penalties, which would tie for the most. So you were right on the nail there. But anyway, we can move on unless there's anything else. What do you want to say about Devin McCourty? Do you think that they should bring him back?
I do. I think they should bring him back. He brings a nice veteran presence to that secondary. But I do like Kyle Duggar. He's one of my favorite players.
We have a comment. Ravens' top 3 needs are all wide receiver.
I think that's
Yeah,
true.
I had wide receiver 1, wide receiver depth, then cornerback cornerback 2 just because Marcus Peters is a free agent and you need a corner still. But yeah, if you're not looking at the free agent, if you're not counting the free agent, then yeah, probably wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 would be all your needs. But anyway, we can move on to the next team, the New York Jets. I want to say one more thing about Devin McCourty. He's just kind of that player I can't see playing in another uniform.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a Patriot and retire as a Patriot. Didn't he? He was drafted by them in like 2010, right? But anyway, on to the New York Jets, who, unlike previous off seasons, they don't have a ton of cap space, but it's because they kind of hit on free agent signings and draft picks the last few years. The Jets, it's weird because you look at the Jets, they're like, oh, they're a young team. They're going to be good for the future. In like 2 or 3 years, they're going to have like probably 5 young superstars, or like 3 to 5 that they're going to have to pay big time money. So now is your window for the Jets, believe it or not. Go get your quarterback, whether that be Aaron Rodgers or I don't even know who else would it be. Garoppolo, I don't think he's going to win you a Super Bowl. Go get Aaron Rodgers. Respectfully, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to win you a Super Bowl either, but at least try to go get your guy and go get Aaron Rodgers. But anyway, other than that, center Connor McGovern, pretty good center as a free agent, so you'd like to bring him back. That's why that's a need. Offensive tackle, I only say this because you have your 3 main tackles. 1, Dwayne Brown is pretty old, so you always want to bring in another young guy. 2, Mekhi Becton struggled with injuries. He hasn't really played much in his career. So you're relying on him being a starter. We don't know if he's good or not, really. And then 3, George Fant is a free agent. He's probably the 3rd best tackle. So you kind of want to get the tackle situation down for Rodgers or whoever's quarterbacking you. But yeah, other free agents, Sheldon Rankins, pretty good defensive lineman, but they have many other guys there, so they're fine. Quan Alexander, he was signed, I believe, late in free agency last year, but he actually had a pretty good year at linebacker. He's bounced around teams the last few years, but I've kind of thought he's been a little underrated player the last 5 or so years, making impact in like San Francisco and New Orleans, now the Jets. LaMarcus Joyner, pretty good year last year at free safety. You'd like to bring him back. But yeah, the Jets definitely like the direction of this team. And don't you agree that it's kind of go all out on a quarterback now and try to win?
Definitely.
Like, you don't want to miss your window. But on to the Chiefs. Chiefs just won the Super Bowl after having an offseason in which they were supposed to have a down year after losing Tyrann Mathieu, Tyreek Hill, and some other players. And they somehow go out 14-3, win the Super Bowl. Mahomes wins MVP. Super Bowl MVP has an amazing season. But what do the Chiefs do? Looking at the Chiefs' needs, offensive tackle, because your 2 starting tackles are free agents. Orlando Brown Jr., they didn't franchise tag, which was a surprise to some. Andrew Wiley, your other tackle, is a free agent. So you're going to want to try to bring both of them back or go get new tackles. They went through the same thing a few years ago where they let Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher walk, and then they found these 2 guys. Or they already had Wiley, but they found Orlando Brown, and they kept Wiley, and they were actually worked out for them, but not as great as they hoped, I guess. So they can always go upgrade tackles, but you just don't want to put Mahomes at risk with having bad tackle play, so you really need to go get tackles. 2 wide receiver, you look at Juju Smith-Schuster, McCole Hardman, both being free agents. Now that I think about it, and I was looking at the depth chart, you'd like to bring them back, or at least one of them, but if you were to let both of them walk, you would still have 3 starting caliber receivers in Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, and Sky Moore.
Yeah, and the best tight end, receiving tight end.
Yeah, and maybe the best tight end of all time, up there for one of them. I don't think he's the best, but he's definitely top 2 or 3. So yeah, they'll be fine either way, but receiver's kind of a position that you like to see the Chiefs just keep depth at like they did this past year, and it worked. Edge, you have George Karlaftis as your future edge rusher 1, but you don't have much outside of him, and Carlos Dunlap is a free agent. Actually, I want to see real quick how Carlos Dunlap played because I thought he was pretty good from the just eye test and memory.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see what his numbers had to say though. So Carlos Dunlap, 41 pressures, 5 sacks, 64.7 PFF grade. So not amazing, but still, that's for an edge 2 to get 41 pressures, 5 sacks out of an edge 2 is still pretty solid. So yeah. I like to bring him back, or maybe go bring back Melvin Ingram, who you had a few years ago, who went to play in Miami this past year. He's a free agent again. Wouldn't you think that would be a pretty good signing too?
Yeah.
Yeah, just get a veteran edge rusher to pair with the young guy, and you'll be good. You have Chris Jones in the middle, one of the best players in football, really.
Yeah, he had an amazing year.
Yeah, I think he finished 2nd or 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year. He was 3rd for me, Defensive Player of the Year. I think voting he might have been 2nd, or he was 3rd. I don't know. But anyway, other free agents include really just Swan Thornhill as the ones I put on here. There's obviously some other ones, but these are the main guys. So they have kind of a good amount compared to the other teams. I don't know if you've been noticing free agents. But with the thing with Juan Thornhill is they did draft what's his name, Brian Cook, safety out of Cincinnati last year.
Oh yeah.
So
I think he had a couple of picks in the playoffs.
yeah, he actually was solid as a safety for a rookie. So if they let Thornhill walk, they fill him right in. And I don't quite remember my draft report on him, but I believe I had him as like that free safety who can kind of see the ball, see the field well, and go make plays. But yeah, so the Chiefs are just so smart. Look, knew Juan Thornhill was going to be free agent. Draft safety mid-round. He looks pretty good. You bring in a ton of receiver depth, knowing you have these free agents. You trade for Kadarius Toney, knowing you have these free agents. It works out. Now, what are they going to do with tackle? That's what we have to see. So that's interesting. Chiefs will figure it out. As long as Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are there, is this team not going to win the division? I don't know. I had them like 3rd last year, and yeah, it was disappointing.
Yeah, this year or last year would be the year, but
last year, I don't know how on paper. Now that you look at it after the season, they look pretty good. But before the season, it was like the Chargers. How did the Chargers not win the division? But Mahomes, Andy Reid went absolutely berserk, winning a ton of games and the Super Bowl. On to the Chargers. Minus 20 million cap isn't good for a team that was projected to be contenders by now, and they haven't even won a playoff game since Justin Herbert's been there. But looking at team needs, interior defensive line, Morgan Fox is a free agent. I believe they added him last year. He actually had like 7 sacks or so. He had a pretty good year in the interior there, and he was really, stats-wise, he was really the only interior player making a lot of impact. So you'd like to bring him back or add other pieces there. But looking at other needs, linebacker, Drew Tranquil is a free agent, and they're just not super strong at this position. I'm talking about like stand-up linebacker, not the edge rushers. Kyle Van Noy can actually play kind of hybrid linebacker, stand-up linebacker, rush the pass rusher. Looked like he rushed the passer a lot last year and was pretty good at it. But he's a guy who I think you can let walk because he probably rushed the passer a lot because Joey Bosa was out for the majority of the year, it seemed like. So you had Mack and Van Noy. So with Joey Bosa back next year, for hopefully the whole year, you can kind of let Van Noy walk, or you can bring him back, and he's always a good player. But who knows with Van Noy? He'll probably be back playing in New England next year or something. But anyway, offensive tackle. I only put this on here because Trey Pipkins is a free agent. You have Rashawn Slater, who was actually injured last year, but he's clearly like future. Play left tackle? Yeah, left tackle. I remember there was a battle between Storm Norton and Trey Pipkins last offseason for that right tackle spot. Pipkins won it, and he He's a solid tackle. Could always upgrade Dale. It would bring back Pipkins and still have a pretty good offensive line. So either way would work out for them. But yeah, do you have anything to say on like the Chargers free agency or offseason plans or just the overall state of the franchise, coaching, anything you want to say?
I think the Chargers on paper should be contenders, and I think last year was a big health issue because they never had their wide receivers on the field at the same time, and J.C. Jackson went down, Joey Bosa went down. I think health was a big issue, so I think this year they'll be good as long as they can stay healthy.
But we can move on to the next team. The Raiders, another team I used to like until Daily Carr was absolutely blackmailed by the franchise. Daily Carr was the reason this team was relevant, and they did him dirty. And now they're going to pay for it, and then Josh McDaniels will be fired next offseason, and then they're going to have to get a new quarterback that they're just going to probably treat the same way they treated Daily Carr. But anyway, team needs quarterback. They wouldn't have needed a quarterback if they just kept Mr. Daily Carr, but they had to screw everything up. Pick Josh McDaniels over Daily Carr, making one of the worst moves in franchise history. They're going to need to go, I don't know, draft a quarterback, draft the third or fourth best quarterback in the draft and it not pan out, or maybe it will pan out, or they're going to have to just tank and go get
Jarrett Stidham.
They're going to keep Stidham or go get a free agent. My prediction is that they're going to end up with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's just my gut feeling. McDaniels Garoppolo connection. I think Jets get Rodgers, and then they go get Garoppolo. The Raiders go get Garoppolo, which I wouldn't really like because I don't think now people talk about the Saints maybe settling for a mid situation or being a mid team with Carr. The Raiders would settle for that way more than the Saints if they went for Garoppolo, and they probably wouldn't even achieve mid because of just the overall state of the team, and they were mid with Daily Carr. So
yeah,
with Garoppolo, I don't even think they reach mid. But to be honest, I think that they should just kind of, I don't know,
just tank.
I don't want to say tank because like teams aren't going to do that, but like go just who's some other veteran quarterbacks? Let's go look.
Jacoby Brissett, I think.
Oh, Jacoby Brissett. For some reason I feel like he's going to be on the Bucks, but we'll see what happens with him. Okay, you know what an interesting one is? Remember in 2020 that one game where Daily Carr was hurt? I think it was a Thursday night game, last Thursday night of the year versus the Chargers. Marcus Mariota came in and played like pretty good and almost beat the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
And then people were like, "Oh, they should move off Carr and get Mariota." And then Mariota goes and doesn't have the best year on the Falcons. Do you think maybe the Raiders see something in him and liked him when he was there and bring him back, or do you think it's a new coaching staff that's kind of like out of the picture?
I think with Josh McDaniels, they don't go for a guy like Mariota.
Okay, yeah, I can understand. I'm not going for Mariota. Ooh, I have an interesting one. Okay, look at two young guys. Not that I think either of them is your franchise quarterback, but just take them and see how it goes. If it doesn't work out, you draft a quarterback next year. If it works out, boom. Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew.
Okay.
They're both free agents. Baker probably is the higher end option than Minshew because just the talent. But Minshew, he's showed he can put some good flashes of play together. Give him a year as the starter if you're confident in him and see how he does. Because the Raiders are not going to go in the Super Bowl this season. They're probably not going to be bad enough for the first pick, but I wouldn't count it out considering just the state of the team.
Yeah, they'll be like a top 10 pick.
I would go for Baker and Minshew and see how it goes moving forward. But anyway, this team will probably end up drafting a quarterback either this year, if not this year, then next year. But looking at cornerback as the next need, this team has kind of been weak at cornerback, rotating guys the last few years. And now Rock Ya-Sin is a free agent. They have a solid slot guy in Nate Hobbs from a draft pick a few years ago. But outside of him, I'm going to even look at the other corners real quick. Outside of Nate Hobbs, they have Amik Robertson, Anthony Everett. Neither are star players. So you're going to need to go get a star corner, which I thought they would try to do with Gilmore or J.C. Jackson last year, but they didn't get either of them. And now I don't know what corners are available. Jamel Dean's available. That would be an interesting one. Who else is available at corner?
Let me look.
I'm going to pull it up too so you both have it. James Bradbury, don't see him leaving a Super Bowl contending team for the Raiders, but I don't see Jonathan Jones or Cameron Sutton going there. I think they might bring back Rock Yassin.
Yeah.
That's probably what they'll end
yeah.
up doing. Marcus Peters, I don't see going to a team that's not going to win now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't think that they can get a star cornerback unless maybe they hit on a draft pick. But yeah, they just at least get some depth, improve the cornerback room. Raiders need to improve the cornerback room. But onto the interior defensive line, this position is actually pretty weak for them. Bilal Nichols had a pretty good year, but outside of him, now off the top of my head, I forget who the other two guys are at that position, but I'll pull up the depth chart. I know the second and third best players at interior defensive line are both free agents. And that's why I kind of put this on here, because you have one solid to good defensive guy in the interior, and then you don't have really any much talent after that. Andrew Billings and Jerry Tillery are the other two guys who are the second and third best guys at that position, both free agents. So just go upgrade those spots, get some depth, or add a key, maybe guy who can create pressure inside, and that'll help this team out. Key free agents, already mentioned a couple of these, but the other two guys, Matt Collins. Why does it feel like every year, usually it's like Derek Carr makes the wide receiver 3 very good, and then he goes and gets overpaid. That's not going to be Matt Collins because he's not going to be paid a lot. But first it was Nelson Aguilar, then it was Zay Jones. Actually, we're not going to say Zay Jones was overpaid. Zay Jones wasn't overpaid. He went and played pretty good in Jacksonville, had a good year. Zay Jones is a good player. He wasn't overpaid. But anyway, Derek Carr, the Raiders lose the wide receiver 2 or 3 every year who just has a surprisingly good year. Matt Collins is that guy this year. Don't think he's quite as good as the other two players, though, but we'll see where he goes. I don't see him being back with the Raiders, but who knows? Maybe he will be back with the Raiders. Foster Moreau, as long as Dalen Waller is healthy, you don't really need Foster Moreau, so he'll probably just walk to a different team, but it's always a pretty good, solid backup tight end to be there. So we'll move on to the last team that we're going over today, the Denver Broncos. This team, I know this isn't quite what we're talking about, but just moving forward, the state of the team, I don't know how to feel about them. On one hand, Sean Payton, Russell Wilson can get it going together. Actually, looking at the roster, it doesn't have too many holes, so maybe they could have a good year next year. Who knows, though? But we can talk about edge rusher. So remember last year they had Bradley Chubb before they traded him. They signed Randy Gregory, and it was like, wow, good duo. Randy Gregory gets hurt. They traded Bradley Chubb. I forget how many games Gregory played, but it wasn't many. It was less than 5 or 6. So now you have a needed edge. Gregory is still going to be back healthy, hopefully, this year. But outside of him, you don't have much talent at that position. You're the best guys at that position.
I don't know any of these names. I'm looking at PFF.
Balin Browning is a linebacker who rushed off the end a little bit. Nick Bonito is a draft pick out of Oklahoma last year who I liked kind of as a pass rusher, a raw pass rusher. Reminded me a little bit of Hassan Reddick. I think that's who my comp was. He can play hybrid linebacker, can rush the passer, but yeah, they need some help there, definitely. So whether that's a star guy or just a depth piece or a draft player, go get someone to help that room. Linebacker, starting off the linebacker, Alex Singleton had a pretty good year. Josie Jewell had a pretty good year too, but neither are star players. And Jewell is a free agent along with the third best linebacker, Jonas Griffith. So, oh no, not Jewell. Jewell's there to stay. Alex Singleton is a free agent, and Alex Singleton is the best linebacker. So your best linebacker is a free agent. Your third best linebacker is a free agent, and then you have one just, I guess, starting caliber linebacker, not a special player, in Josie Jewell. So you need to go improve the linebacker room. Interior offensive line. Looking at the O-line overall, this O-line wasn't as good as I thought it would be last year. Garrett Bowles, though, can still be a franchise left tackle. Billy Turner, your right tackle, is a free agent, but you have other pieces like Cam Fleming, who played solid last year when he filled in for Turner. But yeah, they kind of have holes really on the offensive line outside of Bowles. But I just kind of cut it down to the interior because your center, Lloyd Cushenberry, isn't a very good player. Dalton Reisner, your left guard, is a free agent. And then you look at your other player, Quinn Minos. Miners, I forget how to say his name, came out of the draft a few years ago. He's actually the best interior guy, so that's good. But with Reisner being a free agent, Christian Bailey not being a very good center, interior O-line looks like it's a need for this team. Free agents, Draymond Jones, free agent. Dalton Reisner, as I said, is a free agent. Alex Singleton is a free agent. And then Kareem Jackson's an interesting one. He's going to be 35 next year. He's been a pretty good, strong safety for years now. Kareem Jackson's been a pretty good, strong safety for years now. But you have Justin Simmons at free safety. Caden Stones, who actually played solid. He had 2 picks last year, and he barely played because they had Kareem Jackson. So he's a young player, going to be a third-year player out of Texas next year. So he can fill in for Kareem Jackson. You can let Kareem Jackson walk from your team. So yeah, Broncos, interesting team going forward, but they already have the coach. They think they have the quarterback. I think they still have the quarterback. So receiver room, you get Tim Patrick back from preseason injury last year. Judy has the best year of his career. Cortland Sutton could be shopped and traded, or he could stay on your team. He's not a free agent, right? No.
Nope.
Okay, then, yeah, they're pretty good at receivers. So I didn't actually know Michael Thomas was a free agent. He's actually a free agent, Michael Thomas.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Michael Thomas is 30? Wow.
I feel like he's played like 2 seasons.
I thought he was younger than that. But anyway, so that's what we went over today. The team needs, AFC. I will be doing the NFC on my own in a few days or a week or so. Try to get it out before free agency, obviously, which is in a little over a week or so. It actually might be next Monday. It's either next Monday or Wednesday, I forget. But anyway, thanks for watching the pod. It was a long pod, over an hour, but it was glad to be back. Haven't done a pod since January, my playoff predictions. But yeah, John, I enjoyed having you on the pod for the first time.
Yep, glad to be.
I hope you enjoyed enough to stay as a co-host.
Yes.
Pretty fun pod. Now that I think about it, off-season content's going to be fun, talking about this stuff, when the free agency stuff actually goes down, the draft.
The draft, I'm excited for.
Then after the draft, we can start evaluating teams, ranking teams. I do some weird roster criteria that I think I've shown you on the Excel spreadsheet before. We'll have that off-season period in like June when nothing's going on. We can talk all-time rankings, quarterback rankings. We can talk other stuff, and then we get back to July, August, training camp starts, and we start talking about the next season and player rankings for the next season, team rankings, awards, all that. Long off-season, though, but off-season is pretty fun for me. Sometimes I even enjoy the off-season more than the season because I can actually fantasize about my team being good or something, and I do a bunch of rankings. So I enjoy the off-season probably because I'm just an off-season nerd.
A Bears fan.
But anyway, thanks for coming on. Glad to have you as a future guest host and a co-host. Well, not a guest host anymore, an actual co-host. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and peace.
One more thing to add.
What?
I noticed that these podcasts seem to end a certain way, so I just want to say I hate Dan Snyder.